film that is actually in theaters. It's in theaters and limited release. Someone will correct me. There is a publicist who is going to correct whatever information is coming out of my mouth at this moment. It's a I wouldn't say low budget, but it's a lo-fi sci-fi movie that stars Simu Liu. And I have questions about this film. Simulant director April Mullen, welcome to the Film Threat Livecast. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to put you front and center. How's it going?
Great. I feel good. Thanks so much for having us and supporting Simulant.
Awesome. Well, I've always been a fan of indie movies. Just indie movies, to me, they've got more heart. They focus on character, and that's why. And I love there's been an explosion of indie sci-fi films, which is really exciting and encouraging. Tell us about Simulant.
Simulant is a journey of sort of a simulate who is activated by his widow after he dies in a car accident. And it's a husband and wife, and sort of the repercussions of what involves when you reactivate a person, and the trauma of that and the excitement of that. And then we have Sam Worthington on the run and sort of hunting down simulates that have gone rogue and aren't listening to their masters anymore. And then we have Casey Simu Liu, who is basically unleashing and unmastering and setting simulates free to have free autonomy, and believes that we can coexist. So there's a lot going on and a lot of different perspectives, but at the end of the day, hopefully everybody is left with a lot to think about and wonder whether we could coexist in a world together.
I mean, you could compare, I don't think it's fair to compare, but it's got similar aspects to ideas that are in Blade Runner, but very different, because the way the simulants are used is to replace people.
Exactly.
To replace people that have been lost. But I have to compliment you too. Simu Liu, you got him to dye his hair blonde.
I mean, he wanted to. He was excited to have tattoos and be blonde. So it really had a great look on him, and he loved it. And he was so invested in the character and came up with sort of the end scene where he gets to meet his maker before he shuts down, which is one of my favorite scenes in the film now.
Well, I'll say this. It's like Simu Liu, he's obviously Shang-Chi. He is a Marvel character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Chris Evans played two blonde characters, Steve Rogers and Johnny Storm, and did not dye his hair blonde. So if I could say to Simu Liu, hey, this guy will go all out for a role, tattoos and dyeing his hair blonde, he deserves a compliment. So now, how did you, obviously it's not a studio film, but there are some impressive special effects. How do you juggle like the effects for an indie movie, knowing what your limitations are? But I would argue that the limitations for like an indie sci-fi film are actually a benefit from the standpoint of you can lean more into character. You can go deeper layers that way.
Definitely. There is an expectation, obviously, when you're doing a sci-fi film to deliver on that front. And what does that mean? And this is definitely a lo-fi, and I never wanted the world or the world builds or the technology to overtake the characters' journeys, because it really is a movie about universal themes and for people or simulates going through their journeys. And I never wanted to distract the audience from the thought-provoking ideas behind the film. So we kept it minimal and unique. And in some ways, the service androids I really wanted to do practically and not have them be VFX. And so we went to great extents to create full prosthetic and have sort of the human emotions and actors play the role, but be in full prosthetic, which gave them a really unique vibe. And they were designed by Nexera, which is our Apple brand of the future. And they have sort of like a hard hair, kind of like a Ken doll, and they're very gender neutral. And I just thought that was, uniquely Simulant. And you have to come up with really creative ways when you're working with such a tight budget and you're expected to deliver so huge of a, concept. And you want to make sure you get the most bang for your buck, so to speak, on screen, and really keep people happy, be innovative, and be smart with what you have, which is not a lot nowadays with indie cinema. You're really competing against Marvel and remakes. And, we're so excited to be on screens across the country June 2nd, but it's really competitive. It's competitive, and you have to be smart with very little.
So coming to
What are the challenges of getting an indie sci-fi greenlit? Get it off the ground.
It's impossible. I mean, to be honest, I read the script 8 years ago. So just to give you a spectrum of like our journey, 8 years ago, it was a really refreshing idea and it was pushing a lot of boundaries. This was before Ex Machina. And I thought it was so innovative and I couldn't believe what happened at the end of the script. And it really brought about a lot of emotion and like arguments between people, and I loved that it sort of allowed you to go through different journeys and fight for Simulant and also fight for humanity and why and can we coexist and what are these prejudices with love and machine and why does that exist and can we just be peaceful and allow people their own space to have relationships with whoever they want, whether that be AI or not. I just loved all of those themes, and 8 years ago it was like very not sort of in the ether of film particular. Now I feel like it's very current, and with ChatGPT sort of just chasing down our tails and available publicly, and reading poetry and photography and artwork is not out of the question. I feel like it's more current than ever before, but it was a long journey to get the film made as an independent sort of sci-fi. It is still a big budget, but it's relative, because comparing it to Blade Runner, like you said, is just like they're worlds apart in terms of finances. Really, really worlds apart. And Sam Worthington's in the film, and he would often talk about James Cameron and his process and how similar it is. And I was like, but he does have a lot more money. But which Sam brought a really unique point of view. He kept saying, but for him, it's never enough either. Like he's always having to come up with innovative, strange, unique ways to shoot and to film and to get his concepts across. And he's always trying to break boundaries and can't afford what he wants to do either. And I thought, that's interesting. That's really interesting. So maybe we'll never have enough, but you're always aiming for more. But it allows you to be innovative and create really unique content.
I just want to point out the movie is in theaters June 2nd. June 2nd in theaters.
It's on DirecTV at the moment.
It is? No, it's not.
Well, the pay-per-view.
It's a little tiny window on DirecTV, but then June 2nd, you can see it on the big screen and you can see it on demand. It'll be everywhere June 2nd.
On demand. Okay, great. Let's go to, we've got over 300 people watching live, and we've got a lot of comments and questions.
Ooh, I love that.
Okay, so let's if you have time, let's go through these. John Odom says Simulant green is people.
Ooh.
And JTP RX says Sam Worthington is great. I've always liked him.
He's phenomenal in the film, and he is an amazing guy. I mean, he would be messaging me at 5 a.m. about his character and bringing his own props to set, and it's him crawling through the snow. He wanted to do all his own stunts. He was throwing himself downstairs. I mean, he's really committed and amazing artist to work with. I can't wait to work with him again.
Jason Rosenberger says, are the simulants biological or technical?
Ooh, a bit of both.
Okay.
To be honest, a bit of both.
The trailer is on YouTube. The Nerd Far Away says, okay, this sounds very interesting. I want to see it. Love stuff that makes me think. And Retro Nerd Girl says 8 years. Wow.
I know. That's what happens in the indie filmmaking. They never tell you how long it takes. You have to be really passionate to make it count. It's a long haul for sure. I've been making movies for 20 years.
And then the Nerd Far Away asks, for funsies, question for April, do you ever pick an actor and watch all their work? If so, who have you picked? Who would you pick?
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, when I'm sort of, before I have my final rounds of who I'm going to cast, I definitely familiarize myself with their work and what they've done, current and also previous, and sort of just do my homework always, just to make sure it can all fit. But I try really to be open-minded. I mean, back in the day, I was an actor and I always thought, ooh, typecasting always bothered me. So with Jordana Brewster, she came to the table and everyone's like Fast and the Furious, this and that. That does not really give me a great example of what she can pull off in Simulant. Simulant is deep. She's going through grief, a tragedy with her husband, and she's being sort of questioning all of her, her mortality and whether she wants to continue with this Simulant or not. And it's just a very deep, deep, deep character, and I thought she did such an amazing job. So sometimes previous work doesn't really help, and I like to just interview the character or the actor one on one and just sort of talk to them as a human being and say, what what piques your interest about the character, and what would be your goal and focus, and why are you drawn to the character and to the material. And when I met Jordana, she had gone through something where she had an injury and a trauma in her brain and lost pieces, and then she lost pieces of her memory, and she found that so bizarre and scary and unique. And she was very interested with the fact that you could download memories into the mind of a simulant and then recreate that same person. And she just found that fascinating. So there was a real personal through line with her, and that resonated with her and the character. And I thought that was so beautiful. And she came to set every day with so much truth behind that because of that very reason, because of that personal experience. And I just think always give actors benefit of the doubt, and try to break the cast of like the typical sort of stereotypical casting that they always sort of get typecast into.
Question from Brock Samsonite: what was the budget and what level of CGI can we expect to see? Well, you can see the trailer on YouTube right now, but usually you give a broad number for a budget, especially when it comes to an indie film. You don't want to be too revealing.
No, we can't, because we're fighting for every little dollar that we put on screen. We're really scrimmaging for. And if we told you, then everybody would be like, oh, everybody can make things for this level, but they don't see us breaking our back, really hanging on, relationships. And we shot the film in Hamilton, and I really wanted the vibe to feel gritty and human and feel like the streets of today, and not alienate the audience so far into the future that they wouldn't recognize the world as we know it in 2023. I wanted it to feel like simulants were amongst us this day and age. And I never wanted the CGI to take over, so to speak. I never wanted the world to feel so big and so different than ours that it would take or distract from the characters and what was actually going through the characters' minds, which I think at the end of the day, Simulant really is a think piece and gives you 4 very different perspectives on love in a weird way. And at the end of the day, I think it makes you question so many things, because it really turns the table at the end, and there's a really big surprise ending and nobody sees it coming. And I love that about the film. And it makes you question why you were rooting for who you were rooting for, and was it right or wrong? And there's no real black and white, red, purple answer. It's all very gray and very unique to the person and very unique to the audience member. And I feel like it'll cause a lot of discussion with friends and family once you watch it and see it together. It's really fun to say, hey, would you bring back a loved one? Would you create a simulated of yourself? Like, I think it's just a lot of really unique concepts that I think we need to think about now, because it might not be too far away.
Question here from Razorburn. April, what was the inspiration to get into science fiction when growing up? Was it authors like Robert Heinlein or Frank Herbert, or sci-fi movies from the past? I guess asking your inspirations.
I mean, I'm inspired by everything. Mostly I'm inspired by life itself. Like, I'm a really big observer, and I was, creating things with the childhood park. I would bring like all the kids when I was 8 years old from all over the neighborhood, and I'd put them in a play, and I'd make up the play and put some music on and play La Bamba, and I'd give them costumes and make the costumes. So I was really always pulling from imagination and from my mind. And I think that all came from what was around me. So, even the simple details in life where you see somebody bend over and tie a shoe for an elderly person or a stranger. I really love life, and those little mini moments impact me in a large way, and usually end up creating or finding their way into a frame of a film that I'm making, and through personal journeys, so that I can share my truth and share something truthful rather than pull from something that I don't understand. I try to really pull from things I care about or have felt in some way, shape, or form.
I know you've got to leave, so I just want to say thank you, April, for being on the show today on the Film Threat Livecast. Simulant is in theaters June 2nd. It opens in theaters and available on demand pay-per-view. Check it out. April, thank you for being on the show today. It's a total pleasure. Really appreciate
and
it.
thank you so much. Thank you for also posting the poster and being a fan of indie cinema and helping support artists like us and make sure these movies are seen. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Have a great rest of your day. I know you've got other interviews, so thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much.